back to another episode of this week's Coach's Corner here at Northland College. This week, after about 15 minutes of technical difficulties here, I am fortunate to have head baseball coach here at Northland College, Coach Jeremy Snow. Jeremy, it's currently we got about 6 inches of snow on the ground, but how are things going?
Yeah, the weather was, kind of came out of nowhere, but outside of that, everything's been going great. We've been fortunate to be outside multiple times so far this preseason before this latest storm. So I think it was just a matter of time before we had to move back indoors.
Yeah, for sure. Talk to us a little bit about. I know, obviously, you guys are obviously have an upcoming trip, but let's kind of rewind a little bit. Talk a little bit about, for somebody that might know, like just to talk about the fall ball that you guys have, and what all of that entails,
Yeah,
at the start of the year.
yeah. In Division III, we get the 16 non-traditional practice dates in the fall, and we get one scrimmage date with outside competition. So when the guys get back to campus, a lot of the stuff they do right away is on their own. We unlock the field and let them get to work, and we really have to rely on good leadership from the returning guys and the upperclassmen to kind of organize that stuff since we aren't involved. But once we start fall practice, when we go for 4 or 5 weeks, depending how we want to use those days, and we play one date of scrimmages. And this year we have a great group of leaders, kept everybody really motivated and held accountable and then grinding to do their daily work as a college athlete. And so that made the transition into fall practice really nice. The practice went extremely well. We have a very interesting group this year with a lot of returning players from last year's team. And then most of our incoming class this year was transfer players with collegiate baseball experience. So it was a really smooth fall. We did play our scrimmages against two junior colleges, Bay College out of the Upper Peninsula and Hibbing Community College out of Minnesota. Same two teams we played last fall. So it's a good look for our guys to play outside competition. And last year, it was really telling of how our season was going to go as far as the young mistakes that we made in the fall, but we were a very young team. And this year, coming in, it was a very different feel. The games went very smooth, and we played well.
Talk to us a little bit. So you guys have been practicing now for it's been a couple weeks now, but obviously, you talked about being outside. You guys were out on the turf for a little bit, but just talk to us about like what a regular practice is right now, not being able to, you know, be outside, for a
Yeah,
full practice.
yeah. I think baseball in the North is tough, especially in the preseason in these winter months. We have really limited space indoors to play baseball, just like everybody else. So we have to be really creative with what we do. We do a lot of small group stuff. We do our hitting in small groups. So for the coaching staff, it is a little exhausting at times because we're running multiple of the same exact practice on a given day. But I'm a really big fan of the small groups. I hate standing around at practice. I hate guys just sitting there waiting for their reps. So I want guys to come in, work hard for an hour with no standing around, hour and a half, whatever it is, and then get out. Know that they got a full practice in, and then the next group can come in and we can go again. And we do the same thing with our pitchers as well. They go in small groups and they're on a weekly rotation of what their daily work looks like when they're throwing bullpens, when they're throwing live sessions. And so it does get a little monotonous for the coaching staff for sure, because we're, like I said, running the same practice. It seems like multiple times in a day, but I think it gives our guys the most reps and prepares us as best as possible with our limited space. Um, Now here at Northland, we're very fortunate to have Ponzio Stadium and the extra turf space out there to be able to almost get a full field's worth of
Yep.
reps. So this warm front that we've had over the last 2 weeks has allowed us to be out on the turf and allowed us to really get more defensive reps and more total team reps than we normally do, and I'm excited to see how that extra preseason boost helps us in the early games.
Yeah, and let's talk about. That's a good segue into the. So you guys are headed to the Russ Matt Invitational, I believe it's called. In what's city in Florida? I know you guys are
Uh,
going to.
Greater Orlando area,
Okay.
Davenport, Auburndale, um, those type of areas. I think I'm drawing a blank on one of the areas, but it essentially is that Greater Orlando area.
So let's talk a little bit about your Florida trip. So you guys are obviously traveling down, 2 games against Cazenovia College on March 5th, against Penn State, Brandywine, couple other games, Farmingdale State College, Gordon College. I think what's unique about these Florida trips is like you obviously probably don't know too much about these teams. They're obviously, most of these teams are usually coming from colder weather states and stuff like
Mhm.
that are obviously getting some games in. But I guess just talked about I guess these Florida trips are probably not necessarily too much about like what the opponents are doing, but really about what you guys are wanting to accomplish.
Yeah, scouting for a Florida trip is always interesting because we don't really find out our opponents until January anyways. We fill out our schedule form and our schedule requests, and the tournament does the best they can to give us games on the dates that we want and the right off days, the right number of games and stuff. And I give them a lot of credit for how they organize putting together a schedule for that many teams and that many fields. But yeah, we don't know who the opponents are going to be. We just know that they're probably coming from another cold weather state where a lot of their practice and preparation's been indoors as well. Um, I think these trips are always unique, and you just don't know what area of the country you're going to play. You could be playing teams from 2 hours away that are also down there, or you could be playing teams like we are this year from the Northeast and New York and Pennsylvania. And yeah, it gives us a chance to play other opponents and do different things. But as far as the scouting and preparation goes, yeah, the main emphasis on that trip is starting our season off on the right foot, making sure that we're taking care of what we do well, making sure that the defensive stuff is lining up, and making sure that we're ready to get the season rolling when we get back up north. So it's about being in warm weather, being on a baseball field, and executing what we can do.
So after the Florida trip, you guys are again this year. You guys will be playing at the U.S. Bank Stadium, home of the Minnesota Vikings. You guys have a doubleheader there. Just talk to us. That's got to be a really cool experience for the guys having some games there.
Yeah, for sure. It's hard for you to say Minnesota Vikings. It's
Yeah, I know it
and,
is.
yeah. Um, Yeah, no, it's always a unique experience for the guys. I think I take it for granted as a coach each time we walk in there. I've been fortunate to play at some pretty impressive places or coach at some pretty impressive places. And so I'm more focused on the game usually and trying to keep the guys focused. But yeah, every year I always have to step back and remind myself that this is part of the student experience part piece and something that these guys are going to remember for the rest of their life. I mean, I I remember being in college and playing in the old Metrodome, and it was a cool, unique experience that I'll never forget. And these guys are living that experience right now. So I always have to step back as a coach and remind myself that. But at the end of the day, once that first pitch is thrown, it's got to be just another game. But yeah, it's a very cool experience and something that we've been fortunate to do the last couple of years. Um, it's a little different. They pack as many games in there as possible throughout the day, so you're on a
Yeah.
strict time schedule, and it's really one of the few times you're playing a baseball game and there's a ticking clock behind you.
Yeah, no, definitely a really cool experience that the guys are definitely going to remember for a long time. So after that, you guys, just looking at your schedule here, obviously, couple more non-conference games sprinkled in. You guys obviously travel to Wisconsin Lutheran College for 4 games actually. Then you guys jump right into to conference play there, against obviously cross highway rival highway 2 rival, UW Superior, mixed in with some more non-conference games. Maranatha Baptist, you guys will host, I do believe
Yep.
that. Um, and then you guys are on the road to McAllister College, and then you're finishing the year with at home against Finlandia University. But let's kind of jump right in. I want to talk to you about just the UMAC in general this
Mhm.
year. You've obviously been back for a couple years now. Are there any goals that you guys have of obviously the goal is to make the hopefully the conference tournament and stuff like that, but are there any other additional goals of even like where you guys want to finish this year or anything like that?
Yeah. As far as goals go, we've talked about it several times as a team, and yeah, I think everybody's goal and everybody's mind is on making the conference tournament. But we talk about it with the guys. You can't do that on day one. We've got to take the season one game at a time and stuff. So really, when we talk about goals with our guys, it's not about finish, it's not about record, it's not about the end of the year. It's about playing this week or playing this game. And we've talked about a little different goal setting, I guess, strategy this year with the guys about having mini seasons and breaking the schedule down into smaller pieces and kind of just talking every Monday about, okay, here's the week ahead, here's who we're playing, let's go over the scouting reports, let's go over what we're trying to accomplish in practice to prepare for those games, and then ultimately let's talk about goal and where we need to be this week with that end goal in mind of being in the conference tournament. I don't like putting a place goal on things, and I don't like talking about record finish with the team. I just feel like if we can do better than that, then why not shoot for better? We want to get off on a good start coming out of Florida, coming out of these preseason non-conference games. But when we get into conference play, we've got to win series, and that's what it comes down to. So we want to make sure that we're preparing one game at a time and really focusing on that.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but the conference playoff games, so they're for most of the series, anyways. Besides, I know the Superior Series, you'll play one game. Is it one game Friday and then a doubleheader Saturday? Is that how most of
Yeah,
the
yeah,
weekends
we'll
are set
play
up?
we'll play a 3 game series with everybody except our travel partner, which is Superior, is played Friday, Saturday, and then we'll play Superior 3 single games throughout the year. Everybody will play their travel partner that way throughout the year, and the top 4 make the conference tournament. So we've got to take care of business against every series, and we've we just got to focus one game at a time. So
Yeah. Um, Kind of switching gears a little bit. Talk to obviously you have a few new faces helping you out on your staff. Just talk to us a little about of kind of who's helping you out this year.
yeah, our assistant coach opportunity here has changed hands a couple times since I've been here, with some guys moving on to head coaching jobs and some guys moving on to jobs more in the field they were studying to go into. So we had a big search this past summer, and we were very fortunate that Jesse Carmona, who's been our top pitcher the last 2 years, has really stepped up to not only run with that job but kind of take over our pitching staff, and he's done a great job. And
That's
then
great.
um, our number 2 pitcher the last several years, Seth Hackbarth, has joined our staff as a volunteer, giving us as much time as he can. He wants to be around. It's a staff of alums, which is pretty cool. But no, I can't say enough about what those two have brought to the table. Just being there on a daily basis and helping out with things, and also stepping up and kind of running with their own stuff. I like to be hands off in certain things, and they've done a great job kind of stepping up for that stuff.
Yeah, for sure. That's really cool. That obviously three alumni that are have been around the program and can share obviously some knowledge that they have just of obviously the school and the area and stuff like that with new players. That's great. Um, let's dive into into your roster. You touched
Mhm.
on it a little bit. You have I would say an older roster.
It's
You
it's an interesting mix. We were probably, if not the youngest, one of the youngest teams in D3 last year, with 18 of our 25 being freshman eligibility. So last year we were young. It was a big learning curve throughout the year, and we brought a majority of those players back, and then we added, I think it's 7 transfers and 4 freshmen to the mix. So the roster size has definitely grown. and we've added depth in a lot of places. But ultimately, the experience and playing time that those young players picked up last year, combined with the addition of these transfers, has really made, like I said earlier, practice has gone really smooth. The culture and attitude and the approach to what we do has just been a more mature effort. And so I think technically we're a lot of sophomores and juniors, but yeah, it's definitely a way more mature group than what we've had.
No, that's great to hear, and that's obviously gonna, especially with some of those transfers that you touched on before, already have that college experience. That's obviously going to go a long way, especially too when, obviously, you know, winter, can sometimes last a little longer up here, and there's going to be rain makeups and stuff like that. Just I think just having that experience of, you know, already playing, or maybe even already being in, playing multiple games throughout a week, maybe pitching on on a little shorter rest and stuff like that, I think is going to obviously hopefully pay a lot of dividends moving forward. So give us some players to watch, give us some new players, incoming freshmen, and give us some returners to keep an eye on again.
Yeah, well, I think where we got to start first when we're talking about players is our captains. Senior Keaton Arizola be our shortstop again this year, and junior Matt Simpson. They both were captains last year and kind of really came into this fall with a different attitude about what needs to get done on a daily basis, and a little different chip on their shoulder about wanting to be more successful and play better throughout the season. And they've really done a great job holding the team accountable, making sure we're doing the right things, making sure we're making mature choices. And I can't say enough about what their leadership has meant. But then, yeah, as far as players to watch this season, Keaton has done a great job transitioning to shortstop. Last year was his first year at the position, and I thought he got better as the year went on. This year, it's no question he's the guy there. And I felt like he had a really bad luck season last year with a lot of hard hit balls that were just right at people and things like that. And he's done a really good job of kind of making a couple key tweaks in his swing, and I think he's set up for a really strong season. I think the young player returner to watch is Ridge Guyette, who's a sophomore from Wisconsin. He started the year kind of rough last year with kind of a big slump, but stuck with it, worked hard, kind of worked on his approach a little bit, and kind of took a step back and realized how people were pitching him. And from the point that he got his first hit last season, he finished the year right around 400 with 15 extra base hits. So really looking forward to watching him grow as a player. Zach Ross is another player returner that had a really good year, really good numbers on a kind of shorter season. He missed the preseason games a little bit, but those three offensively should be in the middle of the order. And then on the mound, we've got Zach Nelson back, who kind of dealt with a little bit of a back thing last year, missed a couple of starts on the mounds. He's back and looking really strong on the mounds. Probably take the one spot for us. And then Anthony Boyle, who was a freshman pitcher for us last year, played a little first base as well. He's still doing the two-way thing, but on the mound, he's really looked apart, really pushing Zach for that top spot as well. I think the two of them have done a great job. And then as far as newcomers go, yeah, I think I'm just excited to watch the whole group kind of come into their own. Caden Willis out of Hibbing Community College will likely take over center field in the leadoff spot in our lineup. He's had a really good preseason swinging the bat, and then he had a really good fall defensively for us too. And then Kaz Mount out of Hibbing has come in as a two-way player, providing some infield depth. He's swinging pretty well, and then he's done a great job on the mound. Jack Kelly and Aiden Hernandez are two other transfers that look to fill in the rotation on the mound. I know I'm missing some others too, but the whole group, I've been really excited watching them play. Even the freshman group, they've really pushed people and competed for some of that time as well. And I'm excited to kind of see how it all comes together.
That's great. Yeah, it sounds like you got a really good core of guys there this year, and hopefully, knock on wood, weather-wise, we'll be able to watch a lot of home games this year. That's going to do it for this week's episode of the Coach's Corner. As always, follow the baseball program. They have Twitter, they have Instagram, they have Facebook, and give us a follow for all updates at northlandcollegesports.com. But Coach Snow, we'll have to do this again soon. We'll
Yeah.
maybe halfway or after Florida, we'll have to do this again. But for everybody, thank you for tuning in.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.